Right, hello everyone, and welcome back to your favorite podcast, which hopefully is this one you're watching right now. Welcome to the PlebPod,
Or
once more.
listening.
I'm César. Today I'm joined by Brandon, Lee, and Sid, and we're going to be talking about AI, ethics in
Maybe.
AI, and possibly some other small subject that may come up because ethics in AI can be a bit of a small topic to discuss. There's only so much you can say about it. So we'll see where the conversation goes. And I would like to start off by asking you guys if you're familiar with Isaac Asimov's laws, three laws of robotics.
Oh, damn. Where you pull that one out from?
No, my mind's gone blank.
Right.
Let me quickly get my notes out.
Right. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with them, I'm absolutely fine telling you what they are because I do have them in my notes. I actually prepared for once. So basically, the first law states that a robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm.
Tell that
Uh,
to a Tesla.
Sorry?
Tell that to a Tesla self-driving car, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that soon enough.
That's because
Already with the controversies? Come on.
We're pros at that. So the second law states that a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And the third law states that a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Now,
Which basically, as a summarization thing, is don't cause harm to human.
pretty
Protect
much.
said human. And protect yourself unless you need to kill a human, then you don't protect yourself and you kill yourself.
Yeah. Uh, so with artificial intelligence becoming more and more intelligent, when eventually, if slash when we cross the sentience line, where an AI isn't just intelligent, it's actually sentient. Uh, if and when that happens, what what sort of thing is stopping this hypothetical AI from simply disobeying the laws of robotics? These aren't actual written laws, by the way. They're unofficial. That they're just something Isaac Asimov wrote in a short story. Uh, but that they're usually taken as at face value. What's to stop a hypothetical sentient AI from simply disobeying the laws, going rogue, and wreaking havoc?
So Terminator 3.
Pretty much. What sort of tools could we have to stop this from happening?
Well, I want to ask one question, take one step back before we jump into that.
Go on.
Do we do you guys know what we do to test how smart an AI is? Or there is a couple of tests that we do have to test an intelligence?
Turing test, isn't it?
The Turing test is the big one.
Yeah,
Do you know what the Turing test
but
is?
I don't know what exactly it is. I have a vague idea.
It's basically you've got, is it an interrogator? And then you have an interrogator gets asked a load of questions and then he gets responses back.
Right.
And those
It's basic-
responses can either be from a human or a robot.
Mm-hmm.
And if he can identify that the responses are from a robot, then the robot's not intelligent because
Right.
you can identify that it's a robot. But if the robot can give responses that makes it sound like it's a human, like it's an intelligent robot because it can trick you into thinking it's a human itself, therefore it's intelligent.
I'm sure it was only something like 5 years ago that the first AI or robot that actually beat it.
That
Right.
did have success, probably. I don't remember. Definitely wasn't in my lecture.
Well, right. So taking that into mind, once there's AI that can consistently be proven to be intelligent to the point where it's borderline sentient of its own existence of itself essentially.
Or a simple way, it's way smarter than us and it makes better decisions than us, and
Yeah,
therefore it's the thing that we use to make our decisions in the future
exactly.
as a further down the line. Okay.
Yeah, so an AI that is intelligent enough to make decisions for us essentially has nothing to stop it from simply not abiding to these laws of robotics about not harming humans and protecting itself unless it needs to cause harm to a human. My problem is with how widespread the internet is. How safe are we actually from something like Ultron from happening?
I'm gonna let Brandon or Lee just take the thing first before I come with boring technical answer, which I don't want to do. I did it at the beginning of I already did it once.
So basically, you're talking about like an AI taking over the internet, as in Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yeah, essentially. How safe could we possibly be from an Ultron-like situation were it to happen? What could we do to prevent it, or if it had already happened, what could we do to stop it?
Well, but first of all, I'm going to say the age-old answer of update your bloody antivirus on your computer. All government mainframes need to be updated to the latest security. I'm going to cite the NHS WannaCry. I think it was WannaCry attack.
WannaCry.
In
Right.
2017. Because
1917 hacks were OP.
no,
Very.
it's no, a lot of the computers are still running Windows XP, so there were just a lot of security vulnerabilities. You go straight in. Here's your ransomware. I know I've gone slightly off topic, but it relates to it.
No, yeah, because
Your systems have to be updated.
yeah, I mean that actually plays really well into this because those are human-made attacks. And human-made attacks take time, coordination, planning.
Yeah.
A sentient or very intelligent AI could simply come up with a plan in minutes, seconds, in an instant. And
Yeah, but you have to remember that human would have developed an AI, and that AI is then have to learn from its mistakes to then get to that point.
right.
So, like I said, if there is a point where our security is all up to date, like on that day the attack happens, then we are well and truly royally fucked.
Well, yeah. Because the thing is, how do we develop software to protect our phones, our computers, smart watches, smart glasses someday, I don't know. How do we protect our tech from an AI that's out to get us? How
guess
do we go about
first
it?
thing we can look into, I guess because we mentioned WannaCry, and I do semi have remembrance of how that happened. Does anybody remember why that wasn't a very effective exploit? Apart from the fact that it was a Windows XP outdated machine, but there was a reason why it worked on that.
I have no clue, I'll be honest.
Right. So I think Windows 7 had just come out. If I'm not, correct me, someone.
It's been out
if
for a
I'm
few years.
Yep, okay. But there was a security update on the Windows 7 where it would have meant that WannaCry exploit wouldn't have worked at all.
Right.
And so the hackers found out that the Windows 7 has a security safety net which the Windows XP computers do not have, and a lot of people are still using the Windows XP computers,
Right.
and so they can infect Windows XP computers in that manner. Essentially, it's there are many ways of doing a hacking attack or figuring out hacking attacks. This is one where a company has done a security update push, but loads of customers are still behind. And
Right.
so the people that are behind can get attacked, one of them being the NHS, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other ones which are like 0 day attacks, where like nobody knows that there's like so no security updates happened and everyone's unaware about it. And you can just do a 0 day attack like that if you know the attack itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So something like what the USA did in Iran, was it Stuxnet? Someone name.
Uh,
Stuxnet,
That name
whatever that
sounds
was.
familiar.
yeah, that name
That's
does sound familiar.
that's a 0 day attack. So what
Stuxnet,
happened
yeah.
there was the NSA knew about this exploit and they just kept it as a secret, and then they used it at whenever they could,
Yeah.
to get information essentially.
I mean, that just plays into what Lee said. Update your freaking security.
But question now comes. You're talking about an AI that's smarter than us. So no matter whatever software we make, surely an AI knows a 0 day exploit. And so
Yeah,
therefore, what's the point?
exactly. Like that's essentially my question. If an AI gets to the point where it's smarter than us, what can we possibly do to counter it? Because it'll always be one step ahead, because whatever we think of, that AI probably already thought of it way before we did. So it'll be prepared. Like it's one of those things that makes me kind of wish that AI doesn't get any smarter, because at some point it'll be too smart to stop if we need to stop it from going rogue, for example.
Here's one good thing about the AI stuff and the getting smarter thing. We control how smart we want the AI to get, right? And so right now we've only pushed it to a certain level. Like
Mm-hmm.
the we can just pull the switch and it will stop. We haven't gone beyond. And AI is at the moment we're talking about a really high level thing. We're talking
Well,
about
yeah,
something that knows everything. We don't
essentially.
have AI that knows everything. We have an AI that can drive a car, but that AI has no understanding of any other thing like walking.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's very self-dependent on one set of things that it can do. So like the AI that
Mm-hmm.
beat the world's best chess player, the AI that beat the world's best AlphaGo player, just etc. Same things. They're very specific things that we use them for right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the question of when someone tries to make it general. So something like Siri is quite general, isn't it? Because it's something where you can actually talk to it, and it gives like you can talk anything to it and gives a general answer back,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so
Just don't let Tony Stark and Jarvis loose.
Yeah.
so how powerful, how much further do we want to go with that? So it's like a question of how much further does Apple want to make Siri smarter so they can answer more and more of our questions
Mm-hmm.
rather than redirecting us to Google, because that's what will make them like, whoa, Siri can answer everything.
Yeah.
So
Because
that's where we're getting very close to the line. That's my understanding. I'm
well,
a bit
yeah, no, it makes sense,
close.
because right now what we do have is we have one AI that is very good at a specific task, and if you give it any other task, it just falls apart because it doesn't know what that different task is.
Yep.
The real danger comes when either you either someone or some people make an AI that can understand everything, or even probably even scarier, someone makes an AI that can learn new things. Because rather than it already knowing stuff, it can learn stuff and adapt, which is probably worse in my opinion. Because if it can learn, then it can process the information and make the best out of it, rather than just having it fed by humans and having that information be slightly I don't want to say corrupted because it's not the probably not the right word, but have it be not as specific. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you.
That is a very scary thought. Jesus Christ.
On a general thought of that, AI do learn by themselves already. That is one of the things they do. So let's take. I'm already scared César to shit. So well, it is what it is.
Carry on. Carry on.
Um, as simply as I can put it, deep learning is a thing. So
Not the best moment for my internet to go.
uh, no, César, fix your Wi-Fi.
Right. I'm back. Hello.
Good. Okay. So where was
You
I?
never left.
Did for me for a bit. Anyways, deep learning is a thing that's quite popular. So what we do is we give AI some training data and we say, I don't know, think of something simple. Dogs and cats. Like we just give it data of dogs and cats. And then it just has to
Right.
identify which one's a dog, which one's a cat.
Mm-hmm.
But we're only giving it training data, right? So once it passes that, it can go in the real world and start identifying. But what it does is it uses that as the training data instead. So it's just gathering more and more data and it's learning a little bit more. And so even
Right.
if it sees something expected, it can make a best guess. If it gets it wrong, it learns from that, feeds it in, and so its output gets tweaked so that it won't make the same mistake again.
Now, this is where I want to bring
That's how
the
that works.
driverless cars into this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to drag into ethics a bit here. But
Yep.
you've got the scenario of there's an accident going to happen. Say the tire blows.
Right.
No way, that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Right, say you've got the classic kid in the pushchair who's been let loose down a hill, and the driverless car's going towards that kid,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's driving uphill or downhill. Does it brake and then probably end up hitting the kid in the either way, or does it swerve out the way and hit elderly pensioner, for example,
Yeah.
or hit nobody? It's that kind of thing. It's like
Well, let's go on a.
this is the consensus with driverless cars. They're going to cause an accident at some point. Something's going to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
I want to just put a counterpoint.
who did it? It's just who did it go and possibly hit as the least collateral damage.
Right.
Because my counterpoint to that statement is if a human was driving that car, like, we're not avoiding the crash. We're going to hit one of the two, right? Like, there is going to be a crash regardless in that situation, whether it's a human or
Yeah.
an AI. The difference where the AI is an improvement is, in general, the road crashes are going to be less. People are not going to be on their phone going 40 miles an hour thinking, oh, it's
Well,
a red
yeah.
traffic light and someone's crossing, let's not hit the brakes. That's just not
yeah,
going to happen anymore.
But
But
yeah, we're still
from-
fairly in the early days of driverless cars.
yeah, no,
So
definitely.
yeah, there's still some tweaking to be done. So these
Yep.
accidents these situations are gonna happen.
These situations.
It's like who
yeah.
do you avoid? Who do you hit? Or do you take a third option and try and swerve and avoid it all?
I mean, going back to the three laws of robotics, that's one type of situation where, in an extreme case, a robot slash an AI will have to make a decision to harm a human because there is no other option. You harm a human or you
Yeah.
harm another human. Which, if we're talking about an AI that wants to strictly follow the laws of robotics, it comes to a crossroads because it wants to follow these laws, but it's physically unable to because it has to be broken eventually. One human or the other has to be hit. How does an AI react, well, quote unquote react? Because how does it react to the paradox of wanting to follow a law but not being able to?
I would make a guess that the driverless car has a passenger in it, and thus it would value the safety of the person in the car more than the safety of the pedestrians not in the car. Whether
Yeah.
correctly or incorrectly, that's probably what it would do.
Yeah.
And the AI could slam itself on the brakes, um, and providing it has like off-board sensors, it could determine if there's a danger in like a car behind, or if there is no car behind, then it could do that.
True.
Like I said, we're still at the very early days of driverless cars.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these tweaks have been ironed out already by some companies like Tesla, but I've read these reports that these things have happened. Like they've injured somebody while it was in testing,
Yeah.
while they're in the car or out the car.
Right, Brandon, you're awfully quiet. Thoughts?
I really had a brief moment to speak. You guys are taking up all the blank spots.
Go on.
Every time I want to speak, someone else mentioned something. No, the only thing I've had so far, and things that's already been said, is in terms of driverless cars. It'd be probably the safest way to get all driverless cars is to push them all out at once, but also take all the petrol cars away at once, because if you can feed all of the driverless cars onto a network, they can all work in sync with each other, so there won't be any crashes on the car side.
Mm-hmm.
It'd have to be that people would have to start following, say, green lights, red lights, and traffic lights, because then pedestrian crossings would be the safest places, because all the cars would stop in sync with the traffic lights. They're all on the same network. They should all follow each other quite closely.
Yeah.
That's in that sense. By all ways, if you're going to enforce driverless cars, you need to put everything on the same network, which then leads to a very easy hack if someone gets a hold of it.
Yeah.
So you need to really think of a lot of like anti-hack walls put up in defences for quite a while before we even get to that possibility. So driverless cars in themselves, they're good because they follow a strict set of rules, but mainly with these sensors and the white lines on the roads, not all these councils, all these places repaint the lines, which means they slowly fade away. The AI can't read that they faded away, so they say there's no lines in their code, and then they start drifting over the lines and the cars start going, and then it causes a hazard. So you really need to work in tandem with the AI and with everything goes along with it, because it's not just like a computer error, it's going to be human error as well, which is going to cause a fault on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, the long-term future is the road lines are not necessary. So the only reason the AI needs to know about the road lines right now is because it's working simultaneously with human AI traffic. But if they're all communicating with each other, then you don't need the lines. You're communicating with each other. You can drive however you want, wherever you want. You'll be safe because you have the information of everyone. We are not able to communicate that quickly, so we need to be more organized in our travels, but they wouldn't need to. So that's one of the differences. But right now, 100% road lines don't get marked properly, and therefore they won't see the road marks, and they would drift lanes across, etc.
Yeah.
That's a very big issue at the moment. Yes.
I was gonna say we're many years away from the point where they can just like follow one road, and if say a car stops in the middle, like say like a breakdown, it will then automatically divert itself to another lane.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of reminding me of a scene in that film Wall-E, where I think the fat man falls off, and then the AI just it immediately sends out a bunch of robots to hit the system, and then diverts all the traffic around straight away,
Yeah.
like within a matter of seconds. Like, we're many years away from systems like that, but it's an idea of what the future could be like.
Yeah, and
once we get around that in major cities.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair, a network of self-driving cars that can communicate instantly with one another also eliminates the need for most traffic lights because the cars can just go and not interfere with traffic because they know when to go and when not to go, when to turn, when not to turn. The only you use for traffic lights is pedestrian lights, which when green, for example, could trigger self-driving cars in that lane to stay stopped for X seconds to allow the pedestrians to cross and then zoom. But for the cars themselves, traffic lights also become obsolete once they start, talking to one another.
Hmm. You don't need traffic lights for the car. For the self-driving car, the traffic lights are just there because right now we use traffic lights.
Yeah.
So in the future, because we already have the information on how to read the traffic lights anyways, in the future you can just have it change the signal to red, the cars will just stop in that area, and you can operate it like a normal traffic light.
Exactly.
And it'll be kind of simple. We did talk about hacking a little bit. I don't know how much we want to go into the boring details of actual what cybersecurity is.
Oh,
But I can
please.
put a little bit of word on the cybersecurity of multi-connected, what is it, self-driving cars with each other, if that's interesting.
Oh, please do bore me to death because I love talking about anything that's related to tech. So by all means.
Right. So we already talked about the WannaCry stuff, right? We talked about the software and how we already talked about the zero-day exploits as well. So in basic summary, all self-driving cars will have a software, and every software has an exploit, right? And
Yeah.
so it's just about when you can find the exploit to then be able, because the self-driving cars are just going to be a network with each other. Once one has it, it's literally directly connected to the next car, if you can imagine. So it will spread like wildfire,
Yeah.
right? So you need ways to stop it before that, which is going to be a challenge, which means you have to create a software which has its own firewall and at least like double, triple protection layers kind of stuff, which we don't have currently. What we have with cybersecurity, you guys have WhatsApp, right? We have the thing that says the end-to-end encryption.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen that on the top?
I have.
That all that literally is if I start a message with César, it's literally I have a key, César has a key. We then do a little bit of funky exponential things, and now I know César's key, and César knows my key without me actually telling him his key. But he has some information. Like, if my key is S and yours is C, you know X to the C, I know X to the S, and I can basically gather that information to communicate with you in a way that you know it's me and I know it's you.
Right.
Right? And that's gone on the basis of the fact that cracking that is mathematically a long time, but not impossible. So,
Well, yeah.
the way you would crack that takes, like, you could do it on an instant by random luck and chance, right? But
Of
random
course.
luck and chance, we talk like one in, I don't know, one with loads of zeros that it's no point talking about, because at that point you're just outright unlucky. And with how WhatsApp works, you've only lost that one message, because the next time you send a message, you get a new key, and we do the same process again. That's what the end-to-end encrypted is. So we get new keys every message we send. So, in that, what might happen as computers get faster is that kind of method is just not viable, because all of a sudden, something that takes a really long time doesn't take that long anymore.
Yeah.
And now we're in trouble. We're back to square one. So we don't have cybersecurity. You guys have heard of quantum computers?
I have. Yeah.
Vaguely.
Essentially, if those become a thing, security breaks like that. Done.
Ooh.
All
Right.
security is gone. It doesn't exist.
I was going to say quantum computers are just not viable for mainstream use anyway because of
But-
how damn expensive they are.
It doesn't need to be mainstream, because if one person has it, They can
They're
go into.
just
Imagine if America has it, right? And the NSA have it. Think of all the attacks they can do on Russia, on Iran, like the proper political attacks they can make now, without getting any trace of it, and just gather information, gather intel for free, gather
Especially
intel of their people.
quantum computers are basically just for science laboratories and
Yeah,
a few other institutions where you need millions and millions and millions of calculations per second.
but
Maybe
would
billions
you
or trillions.
want to give something like that, even for research, to someone where you know they would just hack anyone like that? Snap of a
Absolutely not.
finger, like Thanos snap.
Absolutely fucking not.
And so even if it's for research, I wouldn't. Even the professors, I wouldn't trust them to have a quantum computer because they could do anything they want in a millisecond and get everything.
Here I am wondering what Brandon would do with a quantum PC.
I'm starting to
Even-
wonder what a terrorist organization would do with one, but let's not delve into that side.
No, Brandon. Brandon's more important. I think Brandon will be thinking of Skyrim and how to come up with more Skyrim exploits.
I'd think of if a quantum computer could think of a realistic way to create a black hole.
Ooh.
What, like the
Yep.
CERN laboratory?
Well, it'd be like a black hole, but it'd be a black hole with a function, but it's basically sending everything and destroying all particles directly into it. But it's like a portable bin, so that way you don't have all these landfills anymore. That's just what I would use it.
You basically use it to solve rubbish.
Blue.
Rubbish.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is extremely wholesome. I did not expect that.
And then when my life's come to an end, I just jump in.
Ah, nice.
There's always a catch.
You would be the first man to know what's beyond the event horizon.
No, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't know afterwards, because I'd be dead.
Ah,
He'd be dead
oh,
as soon as
shit.
he enters, though.
Get
Get the GoPros in.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Let's ignore all the logic that doesn't work with that statement.
Yeah.
Get the GoPros in.
Just put a torch in the black hole just to see if it does absorb light or not.
Hell yeah. We would be royally fucked if an AI that had gone, like, not just any old AI, but a hypothetical sentient AI, we would be royally fucked if one of them were to gain access to a quantum computer.
See,
Or
you've been
they could, sorry, or they could make
Oh,
that
sorry.
themselves.
Hmm.
You've been saying about all the sentient AI stuff, but you've got the AI, you can log in, and you can create itself. An AI can't formulate any ideas if you withhold the information from it. So as long as you never link it directly to the internet, in the sense like how Avengers Ultron got to look at the history of mankind and then base his ideals off that.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't let if you let an AI become sentient enough, but you withhold the information, it's like a child. You hold everything away from them. They don't learn anything at a time until you can make the AI say. You give it information bit by bit.
Yeah.
So you give it its whole ideals. You make it learn like how you would a child. It grows. You feed it more information, and you keep it going. Obviously, it's going to be inquisitive because it's sentient. It wants to know more.
Mm-hmm.
You keep withholding it. Obviously, keeps going. The only way an AI should go rogue is only if it gets its hands on the wrong information fed by the wrong ideals. If you teach it right or wrong beforehand, it shouldn't at all go rogue, because it should know by then what he's having its ideals or what's right and wrong. If it changes, then there's something really wrong with the code, in which case it's not rogue, it's corrupt.
That is a very interesting take on the whole AI going rogue situation. I like it.
Mm-hmm. The only caveat I have for you, just to just scare everyone,
Oh, please.
you don't really train AI with code. You just give it some data and it learns by itself. There is no code. Well, okay. There are certain types of AI. There's AI that learn and there's AI that have rules. So an AI that have rules is that's used for like knowledge representation kind of stuff. So for example, you have people that have loads of works, like different work schedules. So you can start passing it to it. Sorry, you can start passing it into rules like says it can only work 9 to 5. Brandon doesn't like getting up in the morning and he only wants to work 2 to 6. Sid just wants to sleep all day, so he's off today. And you just pass it random rules, and then it comes up. This is the schedule, right? So that's a
Yeah.
rule-based thing. But something like when we trained the AI to win at chess or to win at Go, there was no rules. It was just go on, play. And then it lost.
Yeah,
It lost a million times, but then eventually became
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
And
The
then
thing
it
is,
won
the,
a few
the
times.
thing is, when you train a AI to learn chess, it's got to follow certain rules of the game.
Yeah, but those are
So
the basic rules. Like knight can only move there, and the rooks can only move there. But
yeah, but
as the
it will then learn on how not to play those moves if it's like a bad move.
But we
Yeah.
don't tell it that. It just does learns it itself. We just give it
Yeah.
the bare fundamentals every time. That's ours. I know Brandon wanted to say something, so
when an AI comes sentient, like in the way that you guys are like out to be, obviously it's going to learn, but it would surely have rules instated in at the same time. Like that's the reason why, surely why the reason why AI hasn't become sentient now is because we haven't given an AI a like a rule set which goes alongside with it just learning by itself. We haven't given it the rules to go and learn in a certain way. Instead, we've either given it to learn or given it a rule set because we haven't figured out how to give it both at the same time in its in a limitless capacity. We've only given it the limited, which it hasn't worked because no one's been able to get an AI to go so far. So far, they've had that one robot who will talk because it's been given numerous audio files to play off in its rule set,
Right.
but it hasn't got the capacity to learn additional audio files because it has to be fed the audio files. So we've still kept it at a limited capacity rather than being able to create a limitless capacity of it generating its own audio files to create itself going further onwards. It doesn't know how to create WAV files further onwards, but it also it's just a bunch of there's only so much storage you've got on it. Unless you give it a limitless database, there's only so much it can learn and use and manipulate at the same time.
it's also because we are really specifically favoring the AI to learn one thing. So with self-driving cars kind of thing, or I don't, actually that's not a good example. With
No,
walking,
that
for
is
example, right? If you want to teach a robot thing how to walk as an AI kind of thing, we just give it positive and negative feedback loops. So if it avoids an obstacle, we give it like, "Hey, well done, you avoided the obstacle. Wow!" And if it hits the obstacle, we just go, "No, that's not how you do it," and it just goes again and again. But we don't train it, for example, all of a sudden to jump. So we don't give it a positive or a negative effect for it to jump. So it just doesn't jump because there is nothing to gain from jumping. You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah.
it's not that we can't do it, it's just we don't do it because we're always trying to solve one problem with the AI. We haven't had the reason to go, we need AI to solve like 5 problems at the same time. We can just create 5 different AIs to solve the 5 different problems. If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
No, which is a very, very protective
Yeah.
way of stopping, say, an AI revolution. It's because you're not putting everything into one AI, so this one AI isn't learning everything, and then, bam, it started having a revolution against the ideals of mankind because it's realised that robots are far superior and they're way smarter because robots can see the entire internet, whereas humans And they learn so much because their brains are so tiny.
And the fact that companies only need certain problems to be solved.
Exactly.
One company might need someone to lift things up. The other company might need something to move stuff around, and
This is
they're just going to create two different AIs for that.
it's like companies, like medical companies and cancer. Why should they solve a definite solution to cancer when they can profit off it just by getting rid of the problem temporarily?
Yeah, no, that's a whole other can of
Moving
worms.
on. Moving on.
Maybe we'll discuss that in a future episode. We'll see. Basically, what we do as a species is we don't put everything into one AI. We put one AI into everything, one different AI. Which, as Brandon mentioned, is a very protective way of stopping an AI revolution, because you're not going to have a very efficient AI revolution if the AI army consists of 10 million 10 million robots who only know how to walk, 100 million toasters, 10 million smart fridges. That's not a very good army to fight against.
Actually, obviously smart tech's been like one of those trends of like the past 5 to 7 years, I'm gonna say.
Just about.
I mean, for example, I've got smart lights in this room. I mean, they can be controlled by AI, for example. Although we have to tell them to do that. But after that, it automatically does it. I mean, so it's going more.
Yeah.
It's AI's gone more into consumer tech. The more you think of it, and also there's a Google Assistant back there. I just tell it what to do and does it most of the time. Okay, Google, turn off the lamp.
Ooh. In
Did it
before she
work?
doesn't do it.
Oh, it did. It did.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
See, it's like you said
Okay,
about
Google.
the revolution.
Turn on the lamp.
It's
There you go.
It's sort of a case that as long as you don't get the AI to learn how to cooperate with other AI, like in that sort of manner, then we should be okay. That's where they safeguard it, is you don't teach the AI to cooperate with that other AI in that specific manner.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't communicate.
No, exactly. They only cooperate with each other in the sort of, they've been told to cooperate after a certain point, and they go in that pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So they never actually talk to each other. They are just coded in a way that they work with each other at the same time, because that's how they've been taught.
Yeah.
They don't know anything else. They don't know the other one exists. It's just the way they've done it that they've managed to safeguard themselves from any AI learning anything different.
Yeah.
A simple way to really put it in the head is like, you know how we go through school, we go through so many different subjects. Imagine you just have an AI that just gets an A star in mathematics, but then an F in everything else. And then there's an AI that just gets an A star in science, and then an F in everything. That's basically what we got. We got something that can get an A star in everything, but not an A star in all of them at the same time.
So
Pretty
you've
much.
got like a chain, say like a factory, you've got a chain of robots who are A star in their own sort of job.
Yeah, a very
But-
specific
But
thing.
don't know the other jobs. So they
Yeah.
just do their job, and you've got a line of everything of it. It's like workers in like a factory. This was
Yeah.
well. That's how they base it off. You just got set
Yeah.
jobs, set
It's-
departments.
I was just gonna say that's kind of how society's functioned in a way. Well, some societies have functioned. You do this job, you don't do that job, and we don't never teach you this ever again.
Yeah.
You what you
But that's exactly how it
if
is.
you're a farmer, you stay a farmer. If you want to become if you become a businessman, you become a businessman. I think it's societies like, I really want to say communist societies that do that.
It's
But whether it's I'll say more in the Western world, we've got more. I'm trying to stay away from that sort of thing, but
Yeah.
we kind of had more freedoms than like over that side of the world, or
Yeah.
most societies.
Mm-hmm.
So
Also-
whereas we've had the educational freedom to do that, they kind of haven't.
Yeah.
there's
But,
been
but
more.
but in the past in the past, like, 30 to 50 years, I'm going to say, that has massively been bridged.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, a
I,
bit off
I,
topic, but
I was just gonna say, in general, what happens is we just specialize more and more as we get older because when you're in school,
yeah.
you're learning everything, and then you come to your GCSEs and you can start dropping a few off, and then you get to your A levels. Obviously, you're down to like 3 or 4 subjects, and then you get to university where you're specializing in one,
Yeah.
and then you become the cycle of, am I happy with this? Yes, no. Learn something new, specialize in that. So we do
Yeah.
specialize in one very specific area. So that's also why AI specifies in one very specific area, because it's just how we do our things as well.
I like the whole um, different job, the analogy for the different. Um, I need to rephrase this. I like the analogy of different AIs being different workers because what we're basically saying is that we're safe as long as we don't have a handyman AI, which can do many things at once or at different times. We don't have AI that can teach itself new tasks because once we do have that, we may be in a bit of a pickle.
Basically, don't have an AI who is an explosives expert and an electrician at the same time.
Essentially, yeah, basically.
There you go.
Uh, Now, I'm not sure if I made myself clear. I probably didn't. Bit back when I was mentioning sentient AIs and all that. What I mean with sentient is being aware of oneself. Like, as all four of us are aware of ourselves. Like, we know we exist. We are here at this moment in this place.
I exist.
Well, I'm from the country that doesn't exist, so what do I know about existing? Uh,
We will discuss this in another podcast.
Yes.
Sure.
Easter egg for future.
exactly. Once we develop an artificial intelligence that we determine to be sentient, as in it is aware of itself, it is aware of its own presence in time, and
And to
probably
just shortly cut you off there,
go
and
on.
of its own intelligence being smarter than us. At that point,
At that point, we may be in a royal pickle, and that is a very friendly way of saying we're fucked.
We're not completely fucked. And the only reason I say that is because we still hold control power over electricity being fueled into it. We cut off the supply, we just go cold turkey and we just start from the Stone Age.
I mean,
That's the only way you can really stop yourself, because if it gets into the mainframe of everything, which in that case it probably would, the only way is to either destroy it from where it started, in which case if you've made it sentient enough to then duplicate itself and then multiply over and over and over, if it goes to a point where you can't stop it, you will just have to cut it straight from the fuel, which in that case would be the form of electricity over the entire world, and it just goes dark.
Yeah.
so
And
basically,
you do a hard reset.
basically,
Basically,
just-
blow up the power grid.
yeah.
basically, the solution to stop a rogue AI is to literally turn the power grid off and on again.
No. You don't turn it
off.
on.
You don't
No,
turn it on because
don't turn it on.
mainframes will still hold memory. You turn it back on, you've unleashed it back out again.
Yeah.
It's like say like in a sci-fi movie, they contain it to a single container. You link that container back to anything again, that's it. It's back on the mainframe. You
Right.
screwed yourself over all over again. Instead, you hard reset it to the point where it's on nothing. You go through, destroy every single form of hardware, electronics. You destroy it all. You make sure that there's nothing left that it can be used,
And you start fresh.
and then you start from fresh. By that point, you've just got to hope that you've got all these paper plans of schematics to put society and humanity back where it was before, rather than a full hard reset. It's only half cut.
And fingers crossed, it's only a software and not an actual robot. Because if it's an actual robot, then you can cut all you want. It'll find other ways of getting its energy. So we're back to square one.
Yeah.
Because it's super smart. So it'll always find a way around. But if it's on a software, it can't do anything because it needs the power. It can't click out of the power. But if it's already a moving, living thing, then it's too late.
If it's a robot, then by the time we've even identified it being a robot, it has become that smart. It's already thought of 60 billion fail-safes in case we cut the power. It's already uploaded itself, anything and everything. It's already even put itself in a warehouse where it started building a copy of itself.
Yep.
To be self-sufficient, i.e. Ultron, and powering itself with a bloody reactor. You're hopeless.
Yeah, but
You're hopeless if it can figure out how to build itself an entirely new body, separate from us.
pretty much.
I wonder if it would have the ability to possess someone else's body, a human's body. I wonder if it can get that.
No, we're not a bicentennial, man.
But we are quite conductive, because we do get electric shocks, believe it or not. So maybe by the time we figure out that it's time to turn the power grid off, it's too late because it's already inside our brains, and our brains just act like we have neurons in there, which is basically how we train the AI, because they literally just train from neurons.
Right.
Actually, I do want to go back to that film Bicentennial Man for a second. Because that is actually a robot who essentially wants to become human, but develops the inventions that allow it to do that.
Yes.
And then,
That's
and that,
interesting.
but instead of actually wanting to go hell bent on destroying the world, it actually wants to. Well, first it passes on its inventions more to its closest loved ones, or closest relations.
I think that's a fair point.
And then pass it on to the rest of the world.
We've always thought of it as something that wants to destroy us. It might not.
Yes, so that's a case. One, it's a fairly good Robin Williams film. Two, it wants to help mankind, not kill it.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the few film examples I've seen like that.
Yeah, but I think...
And then it actually dies.
Well...
It wasn't that smart, was it, then?
I think...
No, it's because it goes to, like, a court case where if it's considered human, and then it just, like, passes away straight afterwards.
Wow.
Right.
Interesting. I think the way in which we perceive a potential AI wanting to destroy us, that may just be a self-awareness issue.
That's impossible because... And here's why. It's impossible to realize if the AI is going to try to destroy us or help us, is because it's too smart for us to take anything it says as face value.
Fair point.
It knows how to fool us.
Exactly.
And therefore, at that point, you're at its mercy. And
I mean,
you either believe it...
You've also got the vision thing as well.
What's that, sorry?
You've also got vision as well. Wasn't he like a neutral in some sort of sense?
Yeah, vision, I think, says, and don't quote me on this, I think vision says that it's on the side of life, like in Age of Ultron. So it wants to preserve life. Not human life, just life.
It's like what I said before. It's like when a robot takes on the empathy of a human. It will have the feelings of a human. It won't just be.
That's exactly what Bicentennial Man is.
Yeah, but it's like a robot. It becomes a human. It's like Sid. If a robot takes over a human, what's it to say that it has conflicting neuron links, and it takes on like human empathy halfway through taking over a human. it's gonna become like one of those neutral. It could integrate both things together, so it loses half the emotion, but it loses half the capacity, because human brain is only finite. There's only so much space for it.
Yeah.
It's just a case of what is it still going to share, but it wants to destroy the world? Is it not going to suddenly have emphatic thoughts? It's going to be like, never mind, I've realised the error of my ways, let's all huddle around and become a big family? Is it going to be like that?
Won't know, because it's an AI that learns by itself. That's how AI learn. So, and therefore it could come with anything. But my thought again is, it's super smart, and if it's made the decision to go to an AI, to a human, it doesn't want the empathy part. It doesn't want our stupid emotional mental health problems that we go up and down roller coasters and feelings for each other. It's gonna probably want to stick to its goal, and if that means to ignore it or overwrite it, it probably would.
Yeah, but
Have you guys? Sorry to cut, and then
a it can only become as smart as the knowledge that we've got to ourselves, because it can only look into the entirety of the internet. There's only so much information we know that we've uploaded onto it. It can't. We want everything that we know. It can't go further because it doesn't know any further. It will learn, and then it will try and fill in gaps, but there's always going to be errors because it doesn't know. We don't know everything about the human brain. Therefore, it can never know what's fully in the human brain because it doesn't know the exact limit of it. We don't know it. It doesn't know it. If it tried to integrate itself into a human, it probably doesn't know the way to delete the emphatic part of an integration. It can only know by trial and error, like we've known from everything of the information goes all the way from when we became humans, all the way up until now. There is only information there that it can learn, and the only way it can learn further is by trial and error up until that point. But it will never know until it tries it.
that is possibly true. It's just important. This is like a really hypothetical situation. We're trying to explain what an AI would do, but we don't know what it would do because it just makes the decisions completely by itself. Like, if you imagine AI, we just start training it to do everything now and give it, I don't know, 100 years, it would learn loads and loads that we wouldn't know about because it's going to learn by itself. And so we don't know what it's thinking of, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And if it goes beyond a point, we wouldn't know what it understands, what it doesn't understand, and how it understands it. But it will do its best to achieve whatever goal it was set out to do.
Wouldn't its thought process be shown out in code? Could the code just be encrypted?
Like back to the original point, the code is the basic fundamental rules. So you can imagine if you put the 3 laws as code, where we say don't harm humans, etc., etc., as the code. But we won't give it anything more if we're trying to teach it overall. We'll just slowly try to teach it, like it'll just slowly learn as it goes.
But would it when it teaches itself? Does it create its own code, or does it just create functions on itself which you can't read? Will there always be a way that it prints itself out so you can see how it still works?
No.
Does it just make itself, and there's
it
nothing
does
we can see?
No, we don't know why it does stuff or what it does. We know what it does, but we won't know why it does it. We will not have its intentions clear.
Think of it.
It doesn't create its own code. It is just, it will function by itself. There is no way we can see how it's functioned itself.
No.
It is just a case of, it does this action now. We don't know how it does it.
No.
Say, it's like a baby kicking its leg.
Think of it like your thoughts.
We don't know how the baby kicks its leg.
Think of it like thoughts. People don't see, hear, or touch your thoughts, but you think them anyway. You know you're thinking thoughts, but no one else can hear, see, or touch them.
That would explain the voices in my head.
At least that's my understanding of how AIs, quote unquote, think. It's just like us. They just do it like you do breathing.
Yeah, but
it just happens.
We know that they are neuron, like a bit like That's our brain doing something. We know that there's a way that it does it by connection, by electric connections in our brain. We know that that's where it originates from. But where
Yeah.
does it? There's no way we can trace it back in an AI. It is just it does it. We can't fully trace it back as far back as you can with a human's brain like waves. There's no way you
We cannot. Basically, the way we're gonna go a little deeper now into theory. With deep learning, what happens is you have a set of inputs, and like we have a desired output. So let's say we need an AI to recognize handwriting. So you got digits from 0 to 9, right? And so you write the digits 0 to 9, and you want the AI to know like to be able to figure out that's a 5, right? And we go on. So what you have is that input at the beginning, which is just the number that you write. But in the middle, we have hidden layers, which is basically giving it neurons, right? You know how we have neurons in our brain? We're basically giving it neurons to pass that information through the neurons so it can decipher the number 5, right? And then come at the output and say, yes, that's a 5. But how it does that deciphering, we have no clue. Like, we will never know. So we know the input we gave it, we know the output we gave it. Sorry, we know the output we got. We don't know why or what it did to get to there. So
Right.
its decisions are completely.
So
We will never know what its intentions
So,
are, if that makes sense.
what you're saying is we know more about the human brain than we know about AI learning. That's
Essentially,
basically what
Listen-
you're saying, because we can see the in between mainly of or a good chunk of the inputs and outputs of our brain. We can't in an AI. Therefore, really what we should be doing is not letting AI actually exist in the first place. By the human right of self-preservation, we should not be letting AI even start functioning at any given point.
I'll be honest, that's the perfect way to end today's episode of the PlebPod, which we do hope that you have enjoyed. We hope that you learned something new.
I didn't.
and one more thing: if you are a computer scientist, I'm only a university student. Comments are there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm
Yeah.
learning. We can all learn this science. I'm probably
tell
wrong
me-
somewhere in this 1 hour podcast.
And the rest of us plebs aren't even at university.
True.
We're just rambling.
Exactly.
Tell me I'm a bigoted idiot for thinking all of this, please. I want to be proven wrong.
I want to be cancelled
Because
by
I've
the
only-
internet.
Everything has been hypothetical. From everything that I've said out my mouth is only from what I've learned at that given point.
César, if you want to get cancelled by the internet, just go look at a certain country in Europe.
Right. Right.
What do you
I've
mean?
never mentioned the name of a country.
I know.
We already cancelled. Just do the intro now.
Right. If you're watching on YouTube, do know that we're also in Amazon Music, iTunes, and Spotify. If you're listening anywhere else, do know that this podcast and all other Plebels content is on YouTube. Be sure to check out our gaming videos and be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. It helps with the algorithm. So, with you, I'm César, Brandon has been Brandon, Lee has been Lee, and Sid has been our tech guy. See you all
I'm not
in the
even
next
Sid.
one. You're not even Sid, no. Alright, guys. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.